Hey, it's Gary, just here with another quick video. The video is in response to a couple of questions that have been asked in the comment section on my blog. Basically, here's the blogging question. It's about using EF Core in a separate class library project. So we've gone through here, and I'll scroll down to the comments. There's quite a few people are getting a bit confused about what I'm saying in here, and so I thought, you know what, instead of trying to explain this over and over again, let's do a video, and I'll attach it to the video. So basically what we have here is I've got a little project that I'm doing here. I'll just fire it up here in Visual Studio Code. I'm on a Ubuntu box here. So let's fire up this project. So you can see here I'm working on this web API project. So I'll just shrink everything down and explain the project here in detail. So what it is a web API project that is going to help send some updated feeds, so people can request a feed from it. Say, hey, I want a list of the latest referrer spammers. I've got a WordPress plugin that helps protect WordPress sites from being referrer spammed. So I'm updating that plugin at the moment, and I'm also creating this web API to help update it with the latest list of spammers. So that's a project in a nutshell. So but as you can see here, I've developed the project using a kind of a layered system. So we have the API. Then I have another project here with the database details in. So we got this context database. At this stage, it's a very simple database. It's got 3 tables. So we've got this threats table, we've got this type table, we've got the status table, and we've got some fancy gubbins going on here, how it builds a table, etc. And then I've broken it down is the entities are also in a separate project. So you can see here, this is where we start defining what our entities look like. And then we got a domain project, which is, it has these referrers, and this is going to have the domain objects are going to slightly differentiate from be different from the entity objects later on in the project as it goes on. But at this stage, we've got these things. So then we've got a couple other things as service threats, but that's beyond the scope of this video. So what we have here is we have our database context and everything actually defined in a separate project to our web API. So what we'll need to do is at some point we're going to need to generate migration scripts, or like database create scripts, if you like, as we go through. So and we'll need to, how do you generate these scripts? And actually, what I intend to do with these scripts is, you can see here we got a migrations folder, and what I'd like to do is actually get all these generated scripts, which are incidentally going to be C# files, if you like, containing information about how we migrate this database. So when we talk about migrations in EF Core, we're actually talking about every time you release a new version of the application, there might be slight changes to the database entities that are going on. Like you might drop a column, you might be adding columns, you might need to change a data type on a column as you go forward. So what these database migrations do is, these are the commands that, like, when the application starts up, it's going to go and question the database and say, hey dude, what version of the database are you running at this moment? And the database server will go back and say, oh, you know what, I'm running version 3. And then you go, oh gosh man, you're so out of date, I need to get you back up to version 5, for instance. So then what it'll do is say, hey, I've got these bunch of scripts that are that I need to run, so I'll fire them off, and that'll update the fields and do whatever magic you need to happen there, it'll do, and that'll bring the database up into sync, and then your project runs and it fires off. So what we have is when you do this kind of scenario, if you like, there's a bit of pre-planning you need to do. So you can see here, yeah, let me show you this. Actually, I've totally unscripted this video, so I'm kind of winging it from the fly. So yeah, just hopefully you can keep up with me. So basically what we've done here is we're in our startup process, we kind of using dependency injection, and we're saying, hey, add a context, which is our API context. So if we go to our database project here, you can see I've got the API context. So I've declared that in a completely separate project to the API project. And then say, hey, we're going to use SQL Server in this instance, but you can use any database, whatever you like, really. You know, not Postgres, SQLite, MySQL, Oracle DB, blah blah blah. You can use whatever you like, and say, hey, actually, and we're going to use the connection string in our app.json, and you can say. So, because I'm running in a dev environment, app.json we've got two separate files. So, dev environment's going to say, "Hey, I'm going to go away and use this." So, I'm running on a Ubuntu box. So, I'm actually running my MS SQL in a Docker container, if you like. So, you can see here, hey, I'm just going to go connect to this Docker here. Don't worry about the password. It's because it's a Docker instance. It's just, you know, whatever. It's just a dev thing. So there we go. Say go connect to that, and all is good with the world. You can see here, I've my database name I've called Portal, but that's what it runs under here. And okay, cool, whatever. Move on. So you can see. So what I want to do is like I want to be able to create these migration scripts. So what I've gone and done is I've created an API context factory class, if you like, and this is a design time only thing. This is like just for development. So it's just going to be used when you're in a development environment and you're going to generate generate migration scripts. You can see here I've in this instance I'm connecting I'm gonna connect to that SQL in a Docker container, but you see I've just created this migrations database. It's just a temporary database. It means nothing. I'm not going to deploy to it. Don't have to worry about sync. It's just a connection that when we're running migration scripts, it's going to say, hey, I'm just going to go do this thing and just generate whatever changes I need to do. So don't have to worry about this database. And this is, like I say, this is a dev only thing. It's just in your dev environment. Yeah. So is never going to be run in live. It's never going to be run anywhere else but your dev environment. So so all is good in the world, but what it comes down to a lot of times is like people, and I was also quite confused by this in the beginning myself, actually, if I'm honest, is like, how do I generate these migration scripts? Because I've got my API I've got my context in a separate library. So what it is there's actually EF Core requires this little workaround to do this. I believe they have tidied this up in EF Core 2.1. I did read a blog on Julie Lerman's blog. Actually, it's always a good thing to read if you want to keep up to date with EF Core. But I haven't tried it out as yet. And I wrote this blog post that I wrote, I think it was last year sometime. And I'm still using that workaround that I found. Okay, so workaround requires us to create a dummy project, a dummy DB project, right? So, and that's what I have here. So I've just generated a console app. and this is also misleading, where a lot of people get confused. Is like, why do I need this dummy project? It's like, you don't have to ship this dummy project. This dummy project is actually not part of your project. It's just a pointless little thing that's it's actually in the same folder here, but only because that's where I want it to generate, right? But I've just generated a console app, and I've literally done nothing to it. That's just the standard thing that .NET does when it generates your an app, and I've just added a couple of references to it here because we're using EF Core. I've put the EF Core reference, and I'm using this SQL Server design, and this is the most important one here. It is the entity framework called tools.net. And then I've also added references to the API and the entities. But that's it. Like I say, we're not going to ship this project. We don't have to package it up for deployment or anything. It's another dev-only thing to help us generate migration scripts. So we've got to set up here and say, okay, Gary, you've been banging on about these migrations. Come on, do something about them. All right. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and generate some migration scripts using this pattern or practice, whatever you want to call it, that I found out. So let's go ahead change into our source folder. So cd source, and while we're at it, we're going to change into our API database. Oh, API.database project. I've not rehearsed this video. I've not practiced it. I'm basically in the middle of a development flow, and I got another question came over the comment section of the blog post. So I thought, hey, I'll answer this quickly. So here I am in this API database project, and I'm getting ready to generate a migration. You can see here I've got a migrations folder, but I've got squad in it. If I refresh that folder, I've literally got nothing in there so far. Yeah, so I'm going to say, hey, let's go generate these migrations. So .NET EF, and we're going to use a switcher called startup project, and we're going to say, hey, go up a directory, go to dummy project DB, and remove that, and say we're going to, I don't know why I've gone into caps there. So migrations .add, and we're going to give it a name. So let's go. We're going to give it a name of the initial migration or database. Whatever you can call it, whatever you like. Call it Bob, Frank. Really doesn't matter. So we're going to say, hey, fire that off there. .NET's going to give this a good long hard think about and say, okay, you told me to do something. I'm going to see if I can do this at some point in the cycles of the PC, and it's come back and said, oh, hey, I can do this. I've done this right now. And it actually gives us an important bit of information. Say, hey, if you ever want to remove these migrations, well, you can do that just by doing EF migrations remove. So we'll go here and say, oh, in that folder, we got these. Now we've got these two files have been created, and let's go have a look at what these files have done. So if we go through here, we see all this. It's got all this good stuff, and say, oh, we're going to generate these databases, data tables, and we're going to do all this stuff in it, and that's basically it. And say, okay, we've got these migration scripts. We're good to go. So I've generated the migration scripts. You can see here it's actually come in our API database. So I can now commit this to Git and store it and say, hey, I've generated the scripts that I needed. And these scripts will actually create the database at runtime. I think let's touch on some other bit of magic that I normally use when conducting these things. So let's go and check out these startup files. So you can see, I spoke to you about this connection string. This here is an extension method I've actually written in another NuGet package that I'm currently writing. It's 39.data. It's available on NuGet, And basically that implements a repository pattern and unit of work. And so I'm actually adding a unit of work dependency injection, saying, okay, go ahead and add this unit of work. And let's scroll down to this file a little bit to actually see that. I'll separate this out quickly. So here we go, and this is what happens when the application starts up and goes, okay, I'm cool, I'm running, and I'm going to go check this thing. I'm going to get the create scope and say, okay, in all the service provider, if there's a service called get API context, go see if all migrations are applied. Okay, so Gary, that's a funky method. What's all migrations applied? So that's a little extension method that I've written. And if I go here on my API database project, you can see I've got this DB extensions. And basically all that does, it goes and says, hey, have all migrations been applied? It says, okay, let's go through this service context. Let's go through the iHistory interface and say, okay, and let's get all the migrations that have been applied. And say, okay, we go through there and then select them by ID and say, okay, what are the total migrations that have been applied? Select them by ID, and then return any that haven't been applied. Okay, so there we go. So that'll go and say, hey, so the database might respond and say, hey, I'm at version 3, and we'll work out, oh gosh, okay, we've got to apply the migrations up to version 5. So I'll go through and say, okay, let's run migration script 4 and 5 to get the database up to date. And then I've also included in here another extension method which helps me seed my database. So if it returns back and say, hey, there's no data at all in the database, we'll go through and say, okay, let's see if this is seeded. And what I've done here is I've got a couple of JSON files, or I think 3 in total at this stage, which have some like seeding data. So which is data that I want to start my database off with. So obviously I'm going to need some kind of types. I'm going to need some kind of statuses in there. And for this database in particular, I'm starting off with a list of known referrer spammers, if you like. So what we do here is say, okay, we just step through and say, hey, is there any data in this context table? No, there isn't. Okay, let's populate that context data, that type data, with the data that's in this JSON file. And the same goes through for the next 2 files. So that's basically it. So we're up and running here. We've got our migration scripts applied. And at this stage, I literally don't have I haven't run this project or anything yet. So let's go ahead, do .NET run. Okay, and you know, in typical .NET fashion, it's going to go away and do some stuff. And what it's actually going to do now is it's going to pick up those migration scripts and just go apply them to the live database. So in this instance, because we've obviously never run these migration scripts or anything before, it's going to go ahead now and just run the whole shebang. So here we go. Okay, let's go check out this. So we'll start this up. So I'm using a little tool called Swagger to document my APIs. So you can see here I've configured all this up before, and here we go. Let's I can now actually test my APIs and say, okay, cool, let's try it out, see what response we got. And it all looked pretty good. So there's the response body, and there we go. I've only got a couple of referrer names in here. I haven't got the details of these guys as yet, because that's all part of this project that we're putting together at the moment. But that's pretty much worked. And say, okay, cool. So let's go ahead and let's go post a new API. Give this guy give some referrer a name, say Gary test.com, whatever, and say okay, post that out. Oh, okay, cool, that's worked. Because how do I know that's worked? Because I've got this response code. That seems pretty cool. And let's see, let's go get an individual referrer. I've got a computed column here, so let's see if that works. There we go. That seems to have worked. We've got number one. So that's our API working. We've it's all those migration scripts work. So everything's working pretty much hunky dory, as expected. So that's it. That's the video in a nutshell. Was just the steps to how you go through and generate these migration scripts using a dummy project and storing your getting your API database in a separate project. That's it. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. That's kind of that's the whole thing. That was hopefully clearing up some of the questions that the guys were asking. But that's it. That's it. All up and running. So if you like this video, you can do all that like and subscribe stuff. I'm going to try and put a few more videos together over the next couple of weeks. Basically in answer to a lot of these blog questions that have been asked. So if you want to stay up to date with that, do that YouTube stuff. Like, subscribe, do whatever. But yeah, and also read my blog. You'll find links to the blog post in question in the description below. So you can go ahead and read some more of this. It has all the instructions again for you. Probably what I'll do is I'll include this video at the bottom here, I guess. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, obviously ask them in the questions below, or come to the blog, ask in the comments. I'm trying to be good at answering those, or you can tweet me or do whatever you like. Yeah, hopefully catch you soon, and happy coding. Cheers.